So we had a really great and interesting presentation by Evelyn van Rimbeke, and also Julian Giordani has already touched upon the role of the evaluator, and he said something very interesting, and I quote him here: "Think like an evaluator, write like an evaluator." And I will show you a little bit what happens once you have your team, you have written your application, you have successfully uploaded it into the portal, and it arrives at a RIA executive agency. And I will tell you a bit about who are the experts evaluating your proposals. Next, please. Next slide. So, who are the expert evaluators? I think this is just a quick explanation for you to better understand who are the expert evaluators judging your proposal. There might be maybe some misconceptions about who are these experts. Is this maybe the staff or the agency, or maybe someone else? But deciding about the merits of your proposal are actually your peers. These are academics from renowned international European institutions or private research companies. They have a very relevant track record in the relevant field of your research. They are very carefully chosen by the RIA agency, and they are specialists in their field. What is important to highlight here, that these experts are working independently. Their proposal, they assess the proposals completely on a personal basis, and they do not represent their university, they do not represent their SME or NGO or their country. They have to be completely independent, impartial, and very objective. And as Julian mentioned before, the research agency is checking this very thoroughly, that there are no conflict of interest for these experts. Next, please. So this was one of the questions about the process, which is behind once the evaluation process starts, and the RIA agency has allocated 3 experts with their particular expertise. So let's say we have a project which involves biology, chemistry, and IT. Then the agency will pick 3 experts with relevant expertise in these 3 fields. The first step of the process is that the experts evaluate the proposal independently and individually, separately from each other. They do not know who the other colleagues are. They check on the merits of this concrete proposal against the criteria of the call, which have shown both Julian and both Evelyn, which they are, and I will come back to them later. The second step, once it has been clear the individual proposals are submitted, the second step is the consensus, where the 3 experts come, usually virtually, together, and they discuss their different perspectives, they seek common ground, and sometimes there can be divergent opinions, then lengthy discussions occur. If the opinions cannot be brought together in a consensus, as was also mentioned before, there might be a 4th expert or a 5th even seeking to find a consensus. Usually, as in my experience, this is a very professional and collegial dialogue. Everybody learns a great bit from the others. And in the end, the experts agree on the consensus text, which you would receive, like Evelyn showed before, with a lot of useful tips and hopefully good news for the applicants. Next slide. So what are the award criteria, and why are we stressing those so much? Evelyn mentioned them, and Julian before as well. First of all, there's the excellent criterion, which weighs a lot. As you can see, it's 50% of the overall scoring. So it's a very important one. And you need to give thought early. You need to be very clear. What you want to research, very clear about your research questions, because this is going to be carefully checked, and it would be checked if it's really maintained throughout the proposal and if it aligns with all the other aspects and criteria you will be describing later on. Bear in mind that for this part, and I highlighted it here, it's important to clarify not only that you are going beyond the state art, but how are you going beyond the state of art. For this, it's relevant to establish what is the baseline, what are the gaps and challenges you are facing, and how exactly with your proposal you are going to close these gaps and move a step forward towards more innovation in this particular research field you're engaged in. The second sub-criterion is about the soundness of your proposed methodology, and it's a very relevant part. Sometimes in this aspect, and it was touched upon before, is gender dimension, which is usually, in my experience, not very well explained, and sometimes it's mixed up with a gender balance, which is actually criterion 3 and relating more to the composition of the team. So be aware that it is the gender dimension in research here. To just give you an example, for instance, if the proposal is about the scarcity of water in Africa, and then you need maybe to look at the gender dimension more broadly, but as for instance, females might be more in charge of the domestic parts, providing water and food for the families. So it would not be only about the engineering part and so on. So discuss this and check if there may be, there's this dimension to be considered. And also a very relevant point is on open sciences, and there's a lot of information also on the website. I will not be going into the details, but it's very important because it's about the sharing of your results, about growing the results, and also about the durability of your outputs in the future. The next one is about the quality and credibility of the training program you're proposing to your doctoral candidates. Here again, you need to think very early on, very clearly, what kind of training is needed to provide them with the academic skills, transferable skills, which will be relevant in their future career. How can they advance with the skills you will provide them? Here, you need to be very clear about the relevance of the training and also how, in particular, the training you provide fits in the overall research and research objectives you are pursuing. Last but not least, in the excellent criterion is the quality of the supervision. And here I would like to stress that supervision arrangements are very important to be highlighted and clarified. So although you might be really an excellent university with an excellent track record and with great researchers and professors, it is still important to clarify how the doctoral candidates will be supported and how they will be monitored. And this is something where the evaluators will take a very close look at. Next slide, please. The next slide is the criterion impact. It's the expected impact of your proposal. This way is a bit less, 30%, but still it is relevant for your overall proposal, very much so. This is about the expected impact, how your proposal is going to make a change on the European level, and how it's going to make maybe European research overall more relevant and creative. It is also about contribution to structure and doctoral trainings and strengthening European innovation capacity. Here in particular, you have to think about the meaningful contribution of the non-academic sector partners. The next one, it's about the credibility of the measures to enhance career perspectives and employability of your researchers. This is obviously a very important one because the relevant skills you will be providing will help the doctoral candidates in future to grow and become relevant researchers and help them with developing further their careers. it will help them find really good jobs in their field. And here you need to think maybe hard, what kind of skills will be needed? I would just like to state that currently in the field of IT and with artificial intelligence aspects being more and more part of the proposals, we see this is something you have to be very clear of how much you're going into this and what aspects will be used, and have also in other parts of the proposal the relevant expertise regarding these particular parts. The third step criterion is, I would say, one of those which Evelyn has mentioned, which is a bit neglected overall, because sometimes what we see from our side is that maybe the research part or excellence is well explained, but then the aspects how the research results are disseminated, how we'll get out there to reach the general public, maybe finally, maybe if there are some innovative results, how they're going to be exploited, and if so. And in this part, it's a very tough one, because you need to also think about intellectual property rights and also about the data management. So do not hesitate, as she already stated, really to get support and make a very good plan about your use of your results and how you want them to get out in the world. Finally, the last one, it's about the contribution to the expected scientific, societal, economic impacts. So here it's not expected that you hit all of the three of the one at the same time. A lot of the proposals do not have economic impacts, but they might well have scientific and societal impacts, and make sure that you really describe them well and clarify what kind of impacts are expected in these fields. If you do not have economic impact, do not state it, because if it's not well described, it might be even negative if you don't elaborate more on that. Next slide, please. So last but not least, it's the implementation one. It weighs 20% of the overall scoring. Very relevant indeed, because it's something which has been demonstrated before, and it's about your work plan, about the quality and effectiveness of it, about how the work packages are distributed, the allocation of timing. Do you provide enough time to implement certain activities? Is there enough allocation of resources to the individual steps of your plan? In particular, also the fellows' individual projects, how are they detailed? Here you might elaborate on the gender balance in your consortium, which is also very favorable if you can obtain more or less a balance between in your consortium. Aspects of sustainability and greening are also more and more in focus. The second one is about the quality, capacity, and role of each participant, including the hosting arrangements. This is, as I stated, even though maybe your university might be an excellent one and everybody knows that it's excellent and has a great infrastructure, still you would need to make a clear description on how, which kind of possibilities exist, what is the operational capacity, do the partners or the researchers have access to the critical infrastructure to really implement well and good their proposal. So next one, please. So I will not go in much detail because this has been mentioned before, and this is also clear on the website if you check on it, the Marie Curie website. So the results are expected to contribute to the following outcomes for the supported doctoral candidates. It's about new research and transferable skills. Why is it so? Because finally, you really want them to get a good employment and improve their career prospects, which can be within or outside the academia, depending on their career path. The idea is also that new knowledge leads to conversion of ideas in new products and services. And as all we know, we really need this innovation more so, and also the creativity which is reached in between these different interdisciplinary fields. And finally, a very important aspect, which has also been very nicely shown by Evelyn with this last picture, that you gain enhanced networking and communication capacities with and among scientific peers. And this is something which can carry a long career and the future of job prospects. And this is also something where the networking communication can also help the general public to understand better the research and also what kind of innovation is provided by this kind of funding. Next, please. For the participating organizations, so for you, the benefits are really the improved quality, the relevance and sustainability of the doctoral training programs, enhanced cooperation and transfer of knowledge between sectors and discipline, maybe with partners you have not worked before. So this gives you an additional edge, additional possibilities for exchange and growth of knowledge. Increased integration of training and research activities between the participating organizations. What is a really good benefit is also the international appeal and attractiveness, which maybe provide you with better possibilities to work on another collaboration projects in the future, your own boosted research and innovation capacity. And also a very important and relevant aspect is the feedback of the research result into teaching education of participating organizations, because finally this goes back also to the young doctoral candidates or students which will benefit for these kind of results. So to sum up, although as you have seen for all the presentations until now, this seems like a very complex process, so please really start in time. When you're preparing your proposals, be consistent and coherent. What is really difficult, or when you have contradicting statements within the proposals, and this happens also quite a lot, and then it gets scored down because it's not a coherent overall. And it's very good, as Evelyn said, to have someone who will be critical and tell you where the problems are in your proposal. Indeed, you have the first pages are really where you convince the evaluators this is something which is great, this is something which is new, this is something which will bring innovative results, this is something which is coherent, and then they will look into the details, into the work plan and different steps of implementation. So good preparation is key. Strategic thinking in terms of your consortium, who are good partners, who will support you. You will not be able to carry this alone. So you need a strong partnership with clear roles and everybody carrying their weight to really be able to carry through the whole years of the funding. Please make sure you read all the relevant documentation, which has been highlighted all the time. The work program, the guide for applicants, it will be your best friend. And if all prepared in time, and the deadline is in November, so you have the whole summer to work on it, I think you will be on a good way, and the contact points are there to help you further. I wish you all the success, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I think that was very, very helpful. I don't think I can see some questions at the moment. Please don't hesitate to post some. I had a question for Professor Van Hombeke. Because as I understood, you had already 2 previous proposals which were selected for funding from the previous framework program. I was wondering, was it difficult to draft a third successful project after this first two ones. What were the main challenges you encountered in this aspect? Thank you.
Most difficult, I don't know, of course, because it's not the same program. It's important to really start again from the guide for applicants and not from the previous proposal. Still, I think if we write a third program, third proposal, there are parts that are very similar. The training part, the way we organize the meetings, and because I have the experience from the two first, it's more concrete for me that when I start with the first proposal. So this is more easy. This third proposal was unsuccessful last year and passed this year. And the main difference was the scientific project behind was not ready because it is also under construction. We have new ideas, say, okay, this is very good, we should go this direction. But then it takes time to read all the state of the art, to prepare the state of the art, and to know exactly what is the strengths of the network we have. And so this was not clear last year, so I had to rework this part. And I think the reviewers were really, yeah, they were. It was a good comment. So yeah, for the excellence part, it was more difficult, but for the other parts, I would say, okay, it was okay. Also, the topic was easier because it is based on recycling polymers, so it is really more easy to defend this time.
Thank you. I would like to ask a question to both of you. If you had to sum up, what would be the point that could make the difference, according to you, to get selected? I mean,
Nancy, you want to start?
Yeah, well, thank you. I think a very good point Evelyn made before is really you have to make your case early on and you have to be very clear about it. As you have seen, the excellence point carries 50%. So that's a lot. And be aware, and this is a very competitive call. There are a lot of very, very good proposals which are being submitted. And the experts also, sometimes they have to read a lot of the material, and it's a lot to read in a very short time. They have a short time to get acquainted with all the information. So I think it's a very good advice from Evelyn to be very clear and coherent and to avoid contradictions, because this is where you get penalized. You know, when you start saying, oh, we will be using artificial intelligence, but then in the end you said we are not using artificial intelligence, this is machine learning, and then the expert gets confused, but they saying this, but then they say that, and then in the discussion, obviously, between the three experts, these kind of unclear statements can be obviously very problematic. I did not maybe highlight because there was not much time, but a very relevant aspect is also the consolidation of ethics. If you with data management and if you're using artificial intelligence, for instance, what are the implications of my data use and so on. This is getting more and more relevant. So a very good advice for Evelyn was also to get a professional advice on data management, intellectual property, and so on, because this is going to be checked as well. And you don't want to find yourself, having signed a grant agreement and then having to kind of rearrange or trying to solve problems which you have not anticipated before. So yes, I think coherence, be consistent, be coherent, don't contradict yourself. I think reading from a peer, which is very critical and tells you after having written for 2 months that it's really still not clear, it's a very good point. And yeah, this is because if an evaluator sees early on that there are contradictions or maybe the state of art is not clear, this is also what sometimes happens. People think the baseline is clear, but if you don't give a baseline, how can you say how you're overcoming the state of art? This is also an aspect which is usually kind of left in the wake. And also with the resubmissions, a very relevant point is, something which may have been innovative like 2 years ago, it's not innovative today because 2 years have passed. So you might have to revisit the proposal you have and, improve the parts because things change and the state of art changes and so on. So it's never submitting the same thing. You really need to put the work in again and also check all the material which is provided on the website because this, different aspects can be relevant. Evelyn, if you want to.
For me, what is also very important is the choice of the teams, because we need to be complementary and it should make sense for the project. I think if we need to build something which is not clear at the beginning, just to involve some friends or whatever, it will be much more difficult to have a coherent project at the end. And it's good to take teams that also are happy to support you. For example, if you ask them to organize a meeting, they say yes. If you propose something, they say yes. If they start to complain each time you take a decision, it becomes just a nightmare to write the proposal.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to mention that in the meantime, Margot put some new elements in the chat. So she put the link to the indicative timeline for the opening, from the opening of the call until the start of the project. And also, I'm not sure you saw that because it was a bit before. Julien Giordani confirms that part-time work in doctoral networks is only for personal or medical reasons, cannot be for professional reasons. That was just a small parenthesis, sorry. And if there are no open questions, I guess I can let Margot conclude this session. Thank you very much.